We are going to move on to our first panel discussion of this conference, and we're going to look at 5G in energy and utilities. And here I am delighted to hand over to our seasoned moderator, Karim Taga, who is Managing Partner and Global Practice Lead at Time at Arthur D. Little. And Karim is going to run this session for us. Karim, welcome, and over to you.
So, as you announced already, thank you very much for the introduction. This is a special topic because now we bring another perspective, which is the energy and utility business. We will not cover what utility and energy companies have been doing in the telecom industry. That is subject for another chapter, I would say, where they're also deploying infrastructure and also adapting 5G for their own purposes, whether it's campus or dedicated networks and so forth. The topic today is how telcos are also making the effort to basically improve their efficiency and what they're doing when it comes to what we call green energy and becoming, as you know, the summit these days in Egypt, where all the states presidents are official executives are there. We need to, in our industry that consume a lot of energy, show that we also advancing and transforming the way we deliver the services on the network. And this will be the main focus, but also on the consumer side, how we can make them more, let's say, responsible, aware, and help them eventually to also support the sustainability when it comes to devices, when it comes to usage and so forth. So I'm sure that my panelists by now are all in. Is Zoran, Daniel, Mohamed in the call? Are you all in?
Yes, hello.
Yes, we are.
Daniel, excellent. Hi, Mohamed. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. We've been listening to interesting presentations, and today we'll twist a bit the debate, as I mentioned, on our contribution. So welcome. I think I will just quickly say that Zoran Vehovar is a CTO and member of the board of Telemach Slovenia. As you know, this company or group has been acquired by private equity. So the way they run the business is obviously different from other groups or standalone integrated operator. It's a very strong and performing group in CE region with some particularity, and I'm sure that we will build on that. Second, we have Daniel Piechocki, Director of Infrastructure and Service Maintenance, as you know, in Orange, Poland. As you know, Orange is doing a lot of effort also on the group level to transform and become a company with zero carbonation. You mentioned the name later, what year that has been preponed, I understand. And then we have Mohamed Almarzooqi, Senior VP of Access Etisalat. Very happy to see you today and also cover your perspective. I know that each of your group has particularity. I think Etisalat shares something with Orange. You're all operating in two continents with some particularity, which is the African countries as well as the Middle East, and you're expanding also to Asia. So it's very interesting to see also recently with your contribution and access to the Vodafone Group with 10%. So we are also getting here new convergence of industry, but also of regions when it comes to collaboration and best practice sharing. So I will start with Zoran, very much talking about green and efficiency, I understand, in your group. So why don't you share with us the early investment you have done and why for you this is a critical topic?
Yes, thank you, Annie and Karim, for the invitation to this actually very actual panel nowadays. Well, let me start.
The timing is perfect. The timing is perfect.
It's perfect, right? It's our actually daily issue we are dealing with. You know, as not just green is very actual, but here are the risks as well. Here's the cost of the electricity. So there are many factors why this has become our daily issue we deal with. But let me begin with actually Telemach Slovenia and the whole group we belong to has been for years already oriented very much so that would be or has been our strategy pillar to be green, sustainable, and forward-oriented group of operators. And for instance, some things to mention. We have had solar plants, power plants, own production already for 10 years here. For instance, our, here in the proximities, our main data center completely covered in solar panels. And so far in these 10 years, we have produced 600 megawatt hours so far. And, based on today's current energy prices, return on investment would be only 3 years, so that's as well, investing into own production, green energy would be even lucrative today, right? From today perspective. Years ago, wasn't that, the ROI had been way longer, right? But still, this is one of our pillars we are proud of. Not just producing own energy as well. All our cars, company cars, are 100% electric. Then to mention as well, we purchased, at our DNOs, we purchase 100% of renewable sources of energy. So we are 100% green.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand you started very early to consider also your own sourcing and production. So I think now what you're saying is the business case were kind of 7 to 10 year plus. And now with the change, the structural change of the cost, this has become much more attractive 3 to 4 years. So you're getting into the business of energy production at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, but this is an opportunity. We'll talk about your footprint also in multiple countries, because the whole point is, and I'd like to get also Mohamed's view here as a group, is there any advantage as a group? Because the whole point is to know if you go for this PPA contract, right? You do that from a group perspective and you basically source more centrally the energy and then distribute it and find partner distribute across multiple countries, or you have a decentralized approach of basically sourcing and find a good agreement in every country you're operating at. So that would be an interesting topic I'd like to cover today, and would like to listen to the panelists today to share this perspective. Once you have made the decision to source, how is your strategy apart from all the negotiation power that you need to learn and also the mix of energy? So, Mohamed, if you'd like to give your perspective, I know that Etisalat has been very strong also partnering with players in Abu Dhabi and others. And Abu Dhabi is becoming the, let's say, or UAE is becoming the place of green energy with all the vast, let's say, PV photovoltaic platform you're building. Is that beneficial for a player like a telco being in a country that is so advanced globally? So can you share, first of all, the macro perspective from a country, a privilege to have, and how you adapting this as a telco, and how eventually you taking advantage for the group, if this is okay for you?
Yeah, thank you, Karim, for having me today. In general, just to summarize our group, the footprint of our group, we used to be known as Etisalat Group now, or the new name is E&. So we exist in 16 different countries. So we exist, as you said, in a very developed country like UAE, where luckily we also produce oil. But also we are lucky that there is a big attention from the management, from the government of the UAE also to support the sustainability initiatives and toward our government targets by 2050 or even before that, and toward having zero CO2 emission by that date or before that even. And definitely those kind of targets cascaded among all the sectors, including the telecom sector. Now, this makes our life kind of easier in a country like a UAE, because we have the power supplies, we have the support from the government, and we have the economy. The economy here is very strong, the ARPU is very high, so whatever targets we have, we can implement it kind of easier than other markets. But as an E&, group, we have kind of centralized strategy for this approach. So this is created in a group level and then cascaded and broadcasted among our opcos. However, in some countries, we might face some challenges. And this is the beauty of working for a group, because you have a multiple situation and scenarios. So, for example, we operate also in a country like Pakistan, where the average power interruption in this country increased from 8 hours a day to 10 hours a day. Commercial power is not available for 10 hours. So our service is impacted definitely. For more than 12 hours a day, we have to use our own power supply to provide the services. And a telecom service today become also an utility service. It's not that something you can just switch it off if there is no power. No, you should have your own backup system and power supply independent from the commercial network. We exist also in a country like Afghanistan, where it's not a stable country. However, we have to survive and provide the connectivity service. We exist in a country like Egypt because of the currency fluctuation. And as you said, there is now a big event going on today in this week in Egypt linked to the sustainability topic. So it adds a lot of challenges, responsibilities against us as a group, but we keep sharing information on a daily basis among our operation and also with our international partners like Vodafone and other international partners, because toward this elite target for saving the earth and meeting our sustainability targets, I think we should work as a one team.
Can you give an example of how some operation, whether it's Egypt or Pakistan, as a EN group, are taking advantage, so to say, of your capabilities and the fact that you started very early to deal with this? Is it more trading capabilities? Is it more, so to say, assessing where and how to source the energy? Or is it also supporting them with the supply?
No, usually those operations are working independently, so they have their own resource and capability to support themselves. What we are sharing with them is best practice, guidance, strategy, and also support from our main partners in terms of telecom sector. So, for example, we support or supervise the network design in those countries to ensure that there is a minimum consumption based on the real capability and real requirements in those markets. We also have kind of GFA agreements on a group level for solar suppliers, for example, so we can attract best solution and with the best price for those markets as well. We also managed somehow to arrange a kind of international support for some of the operation from international providers for solar. For example, soon we will announce about one of the mega deals for providing sustainable solution for our group with one of the main partners. In general, also, we are building kind of international alliance to share experience. So this year, we managed to build the Gulf Arabian countries alliance for sustainability. So the 7 operators from the Gulf, finally, we are meeting on a monthly basis. We are sitting together and we are sharing experience. Experience not about technical. Also, we are sharing experience down to the cost level. What is the cost? How can we reduce the cost among all our operators? So there is a huge collaboration going on now between in the telecom sector. For the first time, I think we are not looking into that we are competing. In some areas, we are collaborating.
Excellent. I will come back to you later with regards to, let's say, change of technologies, adopting, let's say, the latest standard, whether it's 5G, and accelerating the phase out of other legacy technology to basically improve and reduce the energy consumption, and also the fact that you are eventually as an industry need to partner with some of competitors to solve the problem in a particular country together. So if there's ideas around that, it would be good to hear and learn from you. I'd like to move to now Daniel. I think Orange is one of the operators that started very early to announce the decarbonation. And unfortunately, the opposite of EN, you're not in a country that is structurally as well, let's say, positioned with a high coal production, with, let's say, a lot of import of energy. So relying on other parties, and therefore the global perspective of your group CEO when it started was always how to fix the problem in Poland. And I understand that you moved 3 or 4 years now when Stefan Richard at the time was announcing this and saying that Poland is a major problem for us to achieve. You made a huge structural change. And probably you elaborate, first of all, on the fact that you made this change and how you did it, from becoming a problem to becoming star in the group, and what have you done also structurally in evolving with your fixed and legacy infrastructure that you had. If you can comment on these 2 points, I think many other groups can learn from you.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for invitation, Karim, and maybe some comments at the beginning. It's maybe not the problem. It's we are using rather the word challenge, but it's a fact that the announced group strategy in terms of decarbonization, looking in the long-term perspective, like 2040 or middle-term 2025, when we would like to reduce on the group level minus 50% of decarbonization. What it's mean in Poland due to the country mix, how it was mentioned by you, which is based mainly in 70% on coal. In Poland, it's mean the reduction of the carbon reproducing of the carbon by minus 60%. So it's significant, I would say, impact on the whole group result, and it's a big challenge to realize this, especially that comparing to south countries, we don't have such a good sun conditions. So it's make a small difference when you calculate the business case in terms of ERR and paybacks. So this is why we choose the different strategy than Zoran. We have just few sites, mobile one, which we have the solar panels. So this solution where we are rather using for data center and in general to be decarbonized and efficiency in terms of energy, because it's not only decarbonization strategy, it's a part of the story, because especially due to this situation with energy prices, we started to treat PPAs, purchase power agreement, as one of the financial tools which give us as well the budget stability, predictability, and efficiency, comparing to the prices of the energy which we started to notice, especially after August of this year on the energy stock exchange. So we choose the path to go through the wind farms of the third party due to the virtual and physical purchase power contract agreements. At this moment, we signed 4 such a contracts, so the global amount over 500 gigawatt hours. So quite significant at this looking on our country level. Based on it, we are able to announce that 60% of the sources by 2025 will be covered by the renewable energy, and the emissions will be reduced by 65%. So it's covered by paper and signed.
So it's a major breakthrough when it comes to the performance. How long does such a project take when you get the target, so to say, and the vision perspective of the group, and you from a country level, you need to find a solution? We know that this will be material in 2025. What is the biggest challenge you faced in doing that? If you can highlight to the audience, right, so that they understand the time perspective.
I think first of all, the time perspective when the first discussion about the targets and the level which we have to cover was 3 years ago. The first contract, and it was the first contract signed in Poland on a physical PPA. We did it over 2 years ago. So what is the most difficult? It's kind of responsibility which we are taking for the company and for the person who will be the manage company after you, that you are taking long-term commitment. So PPA specifically, it's if you are interested with the good prices, so the longer contract, the prices are cheaper. So we start, I would say, about this discussion about 8+ years contracts. So you have to be really convinced that what you kind of big volume and big budget commitments are efficient and are securing the and it's the best solution for the next years for the for company. So when you manage this and when you know how to discuss with the or this governance body inside the corporate, how to convince a supervisory board that the price is referring to the stock exchange, and you will look on the crystal ball that confirming that in the 8 years or 10 years will be this price as well. Fair enough. I think it's the most challenging part.
I think you need to make a lot of assumptions as well, right? On what traffic you will have. So that's more on the consumption part and what kind of technology mix you will have as well, I assume. I know that many telecom operators that were aggressive in deploying fixed wireless access versus deploying fixed networks, they have ended up consuming like 2 or 3 times more energy, particularly in the evening, using the mass MIMO, so to say, kind of topology of the network. And they had very bad surprises impacting their EBITDA. So if you do that in 1 or 2 years, and you don't know yet the traffic that this additional service will cause, if you think of 8 years, it's a very difficult in our industry to give a perspective on that.
Exactly. So maybe short comments to this what you mentioned already. Yes, of course, and the quality of forecasting, it started to be a key, not only in terms of long-term perspective due to the volumes which you have to hedge, but as well short-term, because depends on the structure of the PPA, if it's a pay-as-producer, other or virtual one, baseload, I would say type of contract. The hedging strategy are very dependent of the quality of the forecasts, which is very correlated with all these actions on the network development side and optimization side. So you're fully right with it.
I see the two problems. The first one is the traffic, let's say evolution, but the second thing is also the life cycle management of the technology. How fast you will decommission your copper toward fiber, which copper is an active network and consume a lot of energy, 10 times more than a fiber network. And the same thing is a trade between fixed wireless access, your mobile, so to say, going from switching off 2G and so forth. These are implications. So you need to have a very good alignment between the network department running all the technologies and the commercial department, how you deal with that, because that is very strongly engaging in your PPA. I don't know if Zoran wants to talk about that, in particular also how a 5G eventually enable you to reduce the cost, because you need to factor in also the adoption. First of all, the bet you make in is 5G really reducing your consumption, because you're adding another technology on top. And the first thing you do, you increase the consumption of the energy overall, because you have to run the 4G and 5G and hope that eventually some of the traffic will move from 4G to 5G. And then you need also to anticipate that the consumer will use 5G devices. That is, the penetration of the device, the take-up rate is high. So how if we now leave the pitch of 5G is 90% less energy consumption hungry than other, how do you go from this vendor, I would say, ambitious statements to the reality on the ground?
Yes, actually. So just to continue your thoughts, so on one hand, of course, being reliable, rely on all our own resources like diesel generators in case of power shortage. That's one thing, of course, reliability. As already Mohamed mentioned, we are as well part of a national critical infrastructure and therefore obliged by legislation to provide our services. So we need to rely on our own resources as much as possible. So saying that, actually lowering the consumption is one of our aims, our directions, strategic directions as well. So how we can optimize and power consumption as much as possible. One thing, of course, 5G, we know that is way more efficient in terms of let me say spectral efficiency, So every bit transferred, over 5G has way less. They say 7 to 8 times less power consumption per bit, So that's important. The other thing is our vendor provides us with a number of features where like power savings features, intelligent power off, where we can in the time of low load off peak times actually power off symbols, power off carriers, bearers, and that proved us so far to save, in the whole network, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 16% of the total consumption. What is really, sizable number, sizable savings as well, under the assumption that the user service is not affected, So you don't transmit on the full time, full symbols, full carriers in the night time, for instance. That's very, very efficient. The other thing where we are saving, when we are lowering our consumption, is simple data centers temperature increase, in order to save cooling cost, right? Air conditioning cost. And that proved us as well. If you go, for instance, 2 to 3 degrees up, what modern equipment can sustain, to up to 24, 25 degrees in the data centers, you can save 12% of the total power consumption in the data center. So it is very, 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 very tangible savings, and we are acting in all those directions to reduce consumption as much as possible. Of course, under the let me say our target to not affect quality, right? Yes.
Zoran, if I build on what we discussed with Daniel before, which is the forecast, ultimately you have 30 to 40% data growth per year. Still, yes. People consuming more, roughly. In some countries more than that, some countries a bit less. And you have a major shift because of digital transformation from server logic to cloud-based logic, where you need much more consumption in data center because the compute will happen there. Yeah. And this is like also doubling the capacity of the performance, okay? So giving this trend going on, you have the countermeasure that you're putting in, which is efficiency, as you just mentioned, increasing the temperature on the one hand, reducing the transmission and so forth when it's not required. Overall, do you see that we will be able, with the countermeasure, to stabilize the total cost of energy, or the telecom industry will continue to boost the energy consumption and remain super hungry and become even more hungry? What's your perspective there? In particular, if you need to do the deal, as we discussed before with Daniel, right? So what's your view on that? What's your vision?
It is a very good question, of course. Well, we do expect, we are optimistic in this perspective that power costs will normalize back.
Let's keep the cost now. I'm just talking about the overall consumption.
Yeah, yes. This consumption, of course, cloud services are power hungry, right? In the past, how we actually were dealing with or had been dealing with the cost of cloud services, private cloud, for instance, services we are offering to our customers. in previous times, costs were not, let me say, dependent on the power. Power cost was somehow built into the structure of the cost, But recently, that have unfortunately changed, Therefore, we have to, and other players on the markets as well had to actually show distinctively what's the cost, what's the power cost for instance, for their virtual machines. Infrastructure as services, for instance, hosting services, power cost is that much, therefore we have to increase the prices, right? But as I said, I'm hoping this is not a general trend. This will normalize back, because if your power goes up for 10 times and in your structure, infrastructure is a cost, like 40% of your cost structure is power, right? You cannot sustain that without impacting the end user prices,
No, let's keep the price discussion out for the moment, right? Because it's clear, otherwise all the telcos will go bust if you don't pass on the price. Right. And if you pass on the price, you have a problem because the costs or the inflation, you drive the inflation, and at one point the government need to intervene, right? So that's all fine. My question is much more on the measure that you were mentioning before. Will they counterbalance, let's say, the natural growth of consumption of data? Would you be able to, let's say, level up with the countermeasure the overall consumption? So if today you see my point. So
yes, if we take into account or if you take this assumption that 5G is 7 to 8 times more efficient in a spectral efficiency, and if we will be able to move all the traffic into 5G, right? We are in the migration, as everyone, in the migration path, towards 5G, and a big chunk of big percentage of the traffic is already done on 5G. That would actually level off,
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear.
We are not yet there. Let me say like that.
Well, for the moment, each time you introduce a new technology, you add on the consumption because you need to maintain the old technology, 2G, 3G, 4G, yes. And then you need basically, it's like with copper. If you overbuild with fiber, you still need to run your copper network for a certain time until you migrate all your customer. So for sure, you will have a peak. You will see that the peak, in my perspective now, would be like the next 2 years, so going up, and then you will start to see a decline of energy consumption, or is it much later? So that's a question I'm asking, actually.
Oh, yeah. We are seeing that peak because we still have to run 2G, 3Gs in onset, so it's actually, and 2G is not that much loaded. So with the migration to 5G, of course, we have to run all the generations, but we are already seeing that, legacy is not consuming that anymore. So you're right. We are in a hump situation, but with the view of decreasing the consumption in a coming future. Still a couple of years to go.
Mohamed, you'd like to comment on that before we go to the next questions on, let's say, the energy consumption overall, and how you need to explain to your shareholder probably you would need more before you'll get less, how to manage it, and why you need more capex to make the network more efficient. That goes, so to say, in line, right? It goes up. You need to show, you need to put the capex to avoid the OPEX long term, right? That's a trade-off, right?
Yeah, it's challenging for us. But let's compare ourselves, for example, to the car industry. Let's take a car that was made in 1960, compare it to a car made in 2022. Definitely, you will find that new cars are more efficient in terms of needed gasoline per 100 kilometers by 20 or 30% minimum. So the question, why we don't have the same here in technology? Actually, in the 5G side by itself is consuming today triple the cost of 2G, 3G, 4G sites together. So the more technology we are adding, the more power consumption. So we had a straight discussion with our telecom vendors, and we told that this cannot continue. All the new technologies, we need to have it. The power consumption per site should be less, not only per megahertz or per MB. No, it should be per site. Should be less than what do we have. We have kind of work around for it, short-term solutions, shutting down the old technologies. So there is a plan to shut down 2G and 3G in some of our operators. There are plans to shift all the sites from indoor to outdoor to get rid of any needed AC for those sites. There is a plan to collaborate with the tower companies to take part of this responsibility. There is a plan to increase the network sharing, passive and active, in our footprint to reduce the power consumption. There is a huge plan and implementation going on now to use automation and AI to reduce the power consumption. As Zoran said, where we can shut down sites and reduce the number of needed capacity whenever it's not needed. But definitely, and if we are talking about 5G, so 5G standalone or 5.5G is coming, the power will be doubled. And then 6G is coming with the metaverse world. So this is multiplied by at least 10. We need to find an alternative solution, revolution solution. Otherwise, this cannot continue. And as you said, it will have major impact in our EBITDA at the end.
Thank you. It's the discussion on 2G. I'm having it at least for the last, I would say, 10 years. Probably the following. First of all, many have already moved on to single RAN. So effectively, you don't have a strong benefit to reduce that, except using the spectrum with more efficient technologies. And now, one of the topics we've been discussing for many years is actually to let's say influence and lobby with regard to the regulator that probably one of the network remain 2G in the country and all others use the roaming service. So you make basically for the minimum service you require, and we have some emergency, we have some IoT device that are all 20, 15 years that needs to see the rock, that are part of the critical infrastructure. In theory, you don't need 3 operators to run 2G. One can do that. And yet, although we have this discussion for many years, this one operator doesn't want to look like a fool, entertaining an old network for the benefit of others who do not basically contribute much except getting a good deal of that. And the regulator are very, let's get skeptical because many of these services are sort of enforced and you cannot just switch them off. So what is the way out? Because on the one hand, we have this energy pressure. On the other hand, we have less flexibility and you cannot just shut down a 2G today. Right. So what can we do? What could be your answer? And is it part of your agenda these days? Daniel, Zoran.
It's a open. Okay, so if it's an open question, so of course 2G, it's I would say extremely heavy and difficult topic to go out of this technology of this, especially that in Poland it's massively used by us for M2M solution, and it's kind of a blocking point or a challenge to manage. But you have still this 3G, and we have the strategy how to go out of this technology for more efficient like 4G and 5G. And coming back to your previous question, so it's and connected with this, I think it depends on the energy structure which we have as an operator. It depends if you are only mobile. So in my opinion, it will be extremely difficult to keep the energy consumption stable level. You can do, of course, optimization, but taking into account the traffic and all the trends, it's, I'd say, difficult. If you are incumbent like Orange Poland and a convergent player, what we are doing successfully during last years, it's legacy optimization. So all the optimization of copper solutions, starting with XDSL, migrating to fiber, even for radio, which is much more energy efficiency than copper. And until now, during last year, even if we developed the network very massively, because we covered the country like with the 6 million of the households fiber coverage. We leverage, due to this legacy optimization, the increase coming from the network development on mobile and fixed parts. So you have to look as well on this side.
So if I hear well, before we close the topic on 2G, we need to make sure that we get rid of 3G, and this is also subject of regulation as of partnership in every market. And the second I'm hearing is that actually the days of fixed infrastructure are back, where the fix is being valued because it doesn't consume that much. So for the mobile operator who were thinking of fixed wireless access differentiation and putting a lot of traffic on the mobile network, would probably pay a higher price overall and will be beaten on the longer run. So they need to rethink their fixed strategy. So we're now rebalancing. Mobile was everything at one point. Now we see that fixed is, and the incumbent obviously have an advantage in doing so. So you're saying there is a strong comeback on fixed, and ideally it would be the energy, let's say, situation right now is probably good acceleration of making the copper infrastructure, let's say, redundant and phased out, right? Making sure that you accelerate the migration. So this energy crisis is helping, let's say, operator to move faster to fiber at the end of the day.
Exactly. So fiber, it's up to 10 times more efficient in the energy consumption than the copper solution.
Any further comment on those statements? Else I have another question with regards to the consumer. So any topic on that? If not, how much time do I still have?
We're very nearly out of time now, Karim. So I think three big things that came up there. I'm interested in the fact that maybe the energy crisis has been a bit of a blessing in disguise in a way, because certainly the telecoms industry was hugely focused on sustainability and energy reduction and optimization. But boy, does such a big hike in price really focus the mind in a big way. I also thought, I think it was Daniel was saying something about energy optimization or reduction. I think sometimes there's a real worry that it might affect customers' experience. And actually, I think more work might need to be done there, because maybe it's not as drastic a problem as you think. And maybe there's a really good balance to be struck between reducing energy while not disturbing customer experience and not affecting it negatively. And I think there's a really good line of for exploration there. And I also think that it's interesting that it's again focused the mind on fiber somewhat. So I think in a difficult circumstance, quite a lot of good things potentially are going to come out of it for all of us.
Annie, thank you for that. And I think on not only fiber, but 5G acceleration as well. One last question I'd like to ask, and this is relevant as well. You're not only operating a network, you also are taking responsibility to increase the sensibilization of consumer to consume less. So I know that some of you have programs in that, providing the footprint of CO2 of consumer, managing the devices. You have all these refurbishment, etc. Who would like to give a statement there? I know that you're doing.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Please,
quick statement.
Zoran.
Three quick statement. Go ahead, Zoran, Mohamed, and Daniel.
Okay, first thing is that, of course, smart metering, smart grid, so services based on 4G, 5G are quite well spread here, right? Quite well used, and that's, of course, efficiency, right, on the user side, together with DNOs, the distributors. And the second thing to mention is as well, 5G, 4G is now really seriously considered for monitoring power infrastructure as well, but to doing that, you have to, we are in a discussions with DNOs, to ensure higher level of reliability, because if you want to control actually transformer substations, right, with the mobile infrastructure, monitor and supervise it, you need a higher level of a power availability than the subject you control with. So that you get back as well to diesel generators on the mobile sites, you know. That would be quick mention. So our infrastructure is really a great asset to optimize in general consumption, power consumption in a society.
Thank you. Quick statements because we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are right on the out of time.
Yeah, so it's a scope 3, so all the activities around the value chain emissions up and downstream. So all the work which you have to do as an operator with the customer in terms of education, and all the work which you have to do with supplier in terms of how to reuse the equipment, how to make that devices which are consuming 50%, infrastructure in the meaning reusing of the old cards and so on, and CPE, like STB, how to implement deep sleep modes and reuse it. So all the activities around this.
Mohamed, last statement.
Yeah, 3 inputs fast from me. And so as Zoran said, we have the IoT supporting the electricity utilities. So we have the biggest deal in the Middle East. We have 10 million IoT devices in Saudi Arabia, implemented by our operator in Saudi Arabia. So this is definitely adding value to the sustainability topic for the community and for the government. 2, also we have embedded recently a solution in our e-wallet, where the more you recycle items in your home and environment, the more points you will get in our wallet. So this is for the first time connected, and you can be paid back by the telecom operator for you supporting recycling. The third thing, we are using our AI and data analytic capabilities to support also all our consumer to monetize their data. So for the first time to monitor their utilities, their capabilities, their data, their consumption, and how to be able to control it in a better way, and also convert it from a cost center to a profit center.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You did a great job, balanced and giving some perspective, sharing some best practice and learning. I hope that it was useful for the 117 participants we have. Annie, back to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I thought
that was great. Thank you very much indeed, all of you.